Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Fred Kowal, President of United University Professions, UUP, the largest higher education union in America with over 42,000 members and nearly 8,000 retired members. I'm also chair of the board of directors of the National Wildlife Federation, the largest and most effective conservation organization in the nation. I'd like to thank both UUP and NWF for sponsoring today's panel.
But for me, there is no better, more important institution or no more important place to kind of explore the solutions of the future, that applied resource that can get into the field today, build those stewards of tomorrow, than a place like the ESF. So to not invest in a place like ESF at now of all times is literally the definition of insanity.
And I've had a deep connection to this college, ever since I arrived here. My journey with ESF, I came from Ecuador originally and moved to the US when I was 11 years old. And, always been attracted to nature, always been connected to nature. It's always been a very important part of my life. And I always knew that I wanted to do something in the natural world, whether it was through marine biology or through the policy world. But that's how I discovered ESF. And I knew that that is the place that I wanted to go because that's where all these professionals are, where all these like-minded people can come together to make some real impact. So it's my honor to be here, talking about the importance of ESF. I think one of the biggest, let's say, issues right now in the world that we're facing is a loss of hope. And that comes with loss of hope in environmental progress, loss of hope in social progress. And I think while it is true, there are definitely a lot of burdens, a lot of barriers right now that we are going to overcome. There is hope, and that starts in places like this in ESF, where we have the educators that are educating the next generation to become those decision makers, where we have the research that's going to be key to that restoration that Dr. Kimmer was talking about, to all this process that is going to leave us in a better place. So I do think that's an issue. I do think people, may be losing their hopes, but that's why we need to invest in places like ESF. So we're able to build on that and educate the generations of the future.
Essential education is expensive. It's more expensive than classroom education. I want to reframe that and say that ESF is not more expensive. ESF is priceless. And I suppose everybody would say, well, no, my institution is different. I'm going to say that about ESF. Truly unique. Unique in our focus and in the way that our students are being trained practically on the land, in the lab, wading through wetlands, walking through forests, developing this unique skill set that no one else has. One of the reasons that funding cutbacks and treating every institution the same, especially in dangerous ESF, is because what we do is expensive. It is more expensive to train students with these practical land-based experiential skills than it is to just sit in a classroom. And so I think one of the dangers is that we lose the uniqueness of ESF. I was recently among colleagues lamenting the fact that it used to be that institutions all over the world, everybody had a field station. Everybody had landscapes where conservation science was taught and practiced, and that there was long-term ecological research to understand the impacts of different kinds of forest harvesting and management techniques and recovery for endangered species. But you know what? In the higher education landscape, the number of institutions who still require field experience, research experience of their undergraduates is a tiny, tiny fraction. But ESF has resisted those trends to say, no, who we are, what makes our graduates, what makes employers compete for our graduates, is this unique hands-on learning from the land. And so that is an element that I think has to be on the table, is to invest in the future of this unique approach and not to try to homogenize ESF into being like every other environmental program.
Yeah, somebody in the chat stated that ESF should be the crown jewel of SUNY. And you know what? I'm a little bit biased for my role, but I actually believe that. I think the specialization of what ESF brings to the table is why, when you start looking at something that, when we look at the consequences of not having ESF firing on all cylinders, you've got this very slow kind of price that's paid somewhat quietly over 2, 3, 5, 10 years. But then the bill comes due all at once. And you think of the loss of the people, the experts we have that really know about wildfire management, that really know about water quality, that really know about land management and all of the things that are important to this college. And ultimately talk about the research, not only the research we know about, but the research we don't even know about today that needs to be done. Those elements should put ESF at the very top of this SUNY opportunity. Not every one of the colleges brings something unique and special to the SUNY totality. But ESF, in the world that we live in today, with the externalities that we have in front of us and everything connected, ESF plays a very unique role, and I think should have that special kind of attention paid to it by SUNY.
New York State wants to stay and maintain and indeed expand our role as a leader in environmental protection. Restoring ESF's funding is essential because we are the crown jewel, not only of the SUNY system, but the regard that we are met with around the nation and indeed around the world. And at a time when all of these assaults are accelerating, New York State, I think, really needs to recognize that the cornerstone for building the future recovery from this time lies at ESF, that we have that kind of capacity, and it's a small amount of money that is needed to make ESF whole in the scheme of the whole budget, isn't it? It's a small amount of money, and with incredible impacts and payoffs for that in investment.
There's real investments that are being made in climate that are incredibly important. But if you're not investing in the institution that's going to provide the intellectual leadership to make sure those investments are well spent, that the communities are actually safer, that the technologies are deployed well, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? And I just think we have to figure out a way to not have this just be like, this campus versus another campus. So like, this is an investment in the future to achieve all these other goals that you want to achieve, that ESS is a linchpin of that. And if you just move a little bit of money you're already spending in that issue area, you could actually, make the crown jewel even shinier than it is right now. So
I think we have enough clout here to basically say it is the crown jewel of the SUNY system. Just saying. And then secondly, I agree with everything that folks have said, and I just want to kind of bring it to my world. So in my world, what we're trying to do right now is unlock a $50 billion market for carbon, right? And make sure that nature can compete in that market, because by the way, that drives investment in nature that we need right now, to the point around government and what's happening. We will not unlock that $50 billion market if we don't have high quality science and know how to apply that high quality science on the ground to produce carbon credits. We can argue all day about carbon credits and carbon markets, but that is a fact that this market is out there. It is growing and is driving investment in nature if we enable it. And so when I think about New York State, when I think about the Northeast, I think about we need the science that underpins the climate value of doing things in nature that will drive investment in nature, and it will drive jobs in New York and across the Northeast. It will drive investment in our lands and our communities. And so it's not just about the people that are employed, and that is incredibly important. It's also about the dollars that it's going to drive to our economies if we have the science that underpins these kinds of markets.
I would echo that. I mean, all the professors, all the staff here at ESF, great sources of hope. All my peers. I mean, just knowing that I am, in classes, learning, creating friendships here with people that are going to have an impact on the world, that have the same vision that I do, that gives me hope because I know that, if there are bad things happening in the world, I know at least 500 people that are graduating with me and are going to keep graduating, and hopefully in bigger numbers are going to keep that hope alive. So really, that's it for me. I think my peers, my school, ESF is a source of hope.